For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also, though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things.
Awesome. So we are starting a new series today, and it's all about our tongues and our speech. As we move into Thanksgiving, it seems fitting that with our tongue, it's powerful. It's just powerful. And so today we're going to focus on how our tongue is powerful, and then next week we're going to focus on using our tongue for Thanksgiving. And so I got interested in some cool tongue facts, right? And so I've got some pictures up here. Did you know a woodpecker's tongue curls all the way around its skull? Anybody know that? No? Okay, a few of you. Curls all the way around its skull, breaks in two, and when it sticks it out to get in a tree, it comes back together to get the bugs, which is totally cool. All right, next one. A giraffe's tongue is 21 inches long. It's a darker color, and it uses it to grab leaves, but it also uses it to clean out its nose, which, how cool is that, and gross all at the same time. Let's be honest. If you could use your own tongue to clean out your nose, how many of you would do it? A few of you, all right. I think I would do it just for fun, kicks and giggles. This one is called hold on, I got to make sure I get this right. Pangolin. Have anybody ever heard of a pangolin? Okay, all right, a good number of you. All right, so its tongue is so long it's attached to the base of its sternum, and it just, when it's not using it, it just kind of hangs out in its chest cavity and just kind of rests in there, which I thought was really cool. All right, next one. This is a penguin. Penguin has little bristles on its tongue and inside its mouth, going the opposite direction to help it catch fish, which is totally cool. I think I've got two more. This is a frog. Some frogs can spit their tongues out faster than a human can blink, which is totally cool. And some other frogs can spit their tongue out and pull 1.4 times their body weight with their tongue. So like if that were me, it would be like 200 and 300 pounds that I could pull with my tongue, which is totally crazy. All right, next one. This is an anteater, which is totally cool. I saved this one for last because this guy has a tongue that is 2 feet long, right? And the cool part about this is he can spit his tongue out and flick it back into his mouth 2.5 times every second when it's going for ants. All the way out, all the way back in, 2.5 times every second. The tongue is powerful. Our tongues are human tongues are actually made up of 8 muscles instead of just 1. And it's not the strongest muscle in your body. I don't know if you've heard that. I kind of grew up hearing the phrase, the tongue is the strongest muscle in your body. It's not true, but that's okay. But it does have a ton of stamina. I mean, think about it. All right, you use your tongue to talk. You use your tongue to eat. You use your tongue to swallow, to chew, to move stuff around in your mouth. When was the last time your tongue was tired? Right? Like, right now? Like I go for a walk and my legs get tired, but I could stand up here and talk at Worship Uncoiled or talk with my friends or eat a huge meal. You know, Thanksgiving is coming up, and I'm not like, man, my tongue is really tired right now. I'm not sure that I can even talk, right? Because our tongues have a huge amount of stamina. Just really, really cool. And in the book of James, James talks a whole lot about our tongues and how we use our tongues and how we use our speech and how we use that to edify others and how we use that to glorify God and to bring people into Christ. And so in James chapter 3, James says this. He says, "For we all stumble in many ways. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts great things. James here is saying that our tongues are powerful. Our tongues have the power to build things up, and our tongues have the power to tear things down. And I don't know about you, but I'm willing to bet that, like me, you have experienced both of those over the course of your life. You've experienced those moments where you are built up by someone and their tongue proclaiming words to you. People that say, I'm proud of you, I love you, you are doing a great job, keep it up. We are built up by those phrases and by those words. But I've also experienced the tearing down that words bring. I was really short as a kid, and so I learned very early on that people were going to make fun of me for my shortness, and it cut deep for a long time. And even into middle school and high school, I mean, students and kids can just be ruthless. And I'm embarrassed to say that I have at times been the person that has torn down people. My tongue has been used for power in ways that hurt people. I've also built up people as well. But the moments that tend to stick out to me are the times where I have used my tongue for power in a way that it was not intended to be used. And I love what James is saying here, because so often when we think about the way that we use our tongues, we think about, oh, I said this to this one person and it really damaged them, or I encouraged this one person and it was really awesome and I made them feel better. And what we tend to do with our speech and with our tongues is we tend to make it all about that one moment. But James paints a very different picture about what our speech and what our tongues accomplish. James is saying it's so much greater than that one moment. It's so much greater than making someone feel good in the moment. It's so much greater than tearing someone down or making them feel bad in the moment. It has a greater impact than what we would ever realize. James says, listen, the tongue is a small member. It makes great boasts. And he compares it to a ship, and he compares it to a horse and into the bits that go into the mouths of horses. And what he says is, our words, our speech, our tongues will actually direct our lives. Let that sink in for just a moment. Our tongues, our speech will direct our lives. Our lives are steered toward a destination by the words that we proclaim. Our lives are steered toward a destination by the words that we proclaim. And our words are powerful. Now, you may be saying, all right, CJ, I thought like our actions directed our lives. Like our actions are the things that allow us to take the next step forward, that they allow us to move forward. And so how is it that our words are the things that direct our lives? And so I've been reading this book called The Kindness Challenge. It's by this lady called Shanti Feldhahn, and she did a whole bunch of research on how our speech affects us. And here's what she said. She said that when we speak negatively, it impacts something in our brain. And our brain then begins to search for more negative things to say. So when we start speaking negatively about a person, our brain begins to search for more negative things about that person. And what happens is, when our brain gets into that, it gets into this loop of negativity. And this loop of negativity that our words have started makes not only an impact on the people that we are speaking to, but it is scientifically proven that it makes us more irritable and more irritated and angry more easily. So here's what I know. I know that when I am irritable, irritated, and more angry, the actions that I take and the decisions that I make are not the direction I want my life to go. And the same is true of speaking positively. She says that when you start speaking positively, or you start speaking positively about someone else, your brain gets into kind of a positive loop. And you start looking for more positive things. Now, not only does it impact the people that you're speaking to and the people that you're speaking about, but it impacts yourself because you are more uplifting and you are more forgiving and you are in just better spirits in general. And I don't know about you, but when I am making decisions that are going to impact the direction of my life, I would much rather be in a good mood than in a bad mood. Because if I'm going to make a decision that impacts the direction of my life, I make better decisions when I'm in a good mood. Our tongues are powerful, and they can impact the direction of our lives by impacting the relationships of the people around us and the decisions that we make. Our direction and destination is impacted by what we proclaim to others. Our direction and destination of our lives is impacted by what we proclaim to others. Our words have a very real impact on the direction and destination of our lives. And not only that, but the words we proclaim to ourselves have a very real impact on the direction and destination of our lives. James says that just like a ship is steered by a small rudder, our words steer our own lives. So let me ask you a few questions this morning. And you don't need to answer them out loud. Just kind of think about them for just a moment. Do you believe in yourself? I mean, really, really believe in yourself. Do you believe that you will succeed? Do you believe you'll succeed in a future career? Do you believe you'll succeed in a future marriage? Do you believe that you will succeed in your future endeavors, whatever they may be? Do you believe in yourself? Do you believe you are special? When you are sitting alone in a quiet room all by yourself and you are lost in your own thoughts, do you believe that you are special? Do you believe that you are loved? Do you believe that you are beautiful? Do you believe that you are created for a purpose? Here's one of the things that, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I really struggle in this area. When I slip up, when I make a mistake, when I hurt someone that I love, when I am rude to someone intentionally or unintentionally, I tend to beat myself up pretty hard. I don't know if you do that as well. I'm willing to bet that at least some of you do this also. But I say some things to myself that just tear myself down. And I get in this negativity loop about myself. And when I get in this negativity loop about myself, my life is impacted. Because the words we proclaim to others have an impact on our lives, but the words that we proclaim even to ourselves when we are alone and no one else is around have a huge impact on the direction of our lives. Not long ago, we went canoeing, and our family had never been canoeing before. I had been like when I was real little, but nothing like this. We went to Turkey Run down Creek. Luna, our youngest, wanted to go canoeing for her birthday, and so we were like, all right, we'll do that. So Luna and Kirsten were in a canoe together, and I was in a canoe with Tate, and Brinkley and Clark had their own kayak. And so we're going down, and man, I am struggling steering this kayak, right? Or this canoe. I'm paddling, but like the canoe's turning around, and so I'm having to row backward and then forward, and it was absolutely crazy, right? And so what happened was Tate and I, who Tate is terrified, right? He's not the best swimmer. He gets really nervous really easily. And so we get caught in this current, and there's this tree that has fallen over Sugar Creek. And so we get caught in this current, and we're headed toward this tree. And I am in the front of the canoe, which was my first mistake because I should be steering from the back of the canoe. And so we're headed toward this tree, right? And at first I think, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dodge the tree, and then I'm going to be like, Tate, look out, right? But I quickly realized that there is no way because this tree is coming in an angle, and it's got a really big branch. And so I do what any sane person in a canoe would do is I'm like, Tate, look out. And I take the branch and I try to lift it up, right? Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a boat, but if you lift up on something in a boat, you don't lift it, you just push the boat down. And so my canoe went nose first into the water. It filled, it flipped. Tate's freaking out, like going everywhere. I'm like, the current's taking me away. Our stuff is floating away. Tate's like going crazy. And I'm like, Tate, just stand up, right? And he's like, oh, I can stand up, right? It was a crazy fiasco. I was the only one in our family that flipped our canoe the entire day. Here's why I tell you that. Because so often we think we can muscle our way through life. So often we think we can speak with our words and we can and just kind of shoot off at the mouth. And we think that if we just use enough muscle, we can get to the destination where we want to go. But if we just have the right perspective, if we sit in the back of the canoe, we use the oar the right way, we use our tongues the right way, we can guide our lives to the paths that we want it to go. And we don't have to muscle. We don't have to flip the canoe. We don't have to run into situations where things are rough and turbulent and you get scratched up and bumped up and people start freaking out. What James says is very true. Our tongues, our words, our speech actually guide the direction of our lives. Whether that's saying things to or about other people, or whether that's saying things to ourselves. We are guiding our lives to a destination by the things that we say. When I was 15 years old, I started learning to drive. I don't know, how many of you are 15 learning to drive or just learning to drive? You're not 15, Clark. All right, so some of you in here are learning to drive. So when I started learning to drive, I learned to drive on two vehicles that were completely radically different, right? One was a full-size conversion van, like one of those really big ones, right? Not like a 15-passenger, just a little bit smaller. One was a full-size conversion van, and one was a Dodge Neon. Anybody remember a Dodge Neon? Probably not. Teeny tiny little car, right? And so I learned to drive in these two vehicles, which were radically different. I made all kinds of mistakes. I curbed it. I didn't use my turn signal when I was supposed to. There was a time, I think I was driving in downtown Indianapolis, and you know how there's you're trying to turn left, and you've got a green light, but it's not a green arrow, so you can't just go, so you kind of go out into the middle of the intersection. And so I kind of moved out into the middle of the intersection, and my dad is like, all right, now, when you get a break in traffic, you're going to have to go. And I'm like, okay, all right. And he's like, go. And I'm like, no. He's like, okay, go. No. Well, what happened is I sat there so long that the light literally turned red. And then I started freaking out, and my dad was like, you gotta go. And I just froze. I just sat there. And so I'm sitting here, and like cars are going around me this way, every which way. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. My dad's like, you're in the middle of the intersection, right? And so I'd made all kinds of mistakes learning to drive. It was absolutely nuts. But you know one thing I never, ever did? I never turned the wheel right and was like, dude, why am I not going left? It seems crazy to say that, but never once did I turn the wheel right and expect myself to go left. And yet, so often, that's what we do with our words. And that is how we use our tongues. we use our tongues, and our tongues start to guide us to a destination in our lives. And as we use our tongues and we are guided there by the way it impacts our relationships, by the way it impacts our own view of ourselves, and by the way that it impacts the people around us, we are guided to a destination. And suddenly we're over here and we're looking and we're like, I wanted to be over there. And see, when you're driving a car, it seems silly to say, turn the wheel right, but expect yourself to go left. But often when we talk about our words, when we talk about our tongues, when we talk about how powerful our speech is, we often turn the wheel right, head that direction, but expect ourselves to go left. And James says we need to be paying attention to what we say, to how we say it, to how we speak, so that our lives can be headed in a direction that we want our lives to go. So here's the practical challenge. We're going to do two things tonight in the way of practical challenge. The first one is this. The first practical challenge is I want you to just this week consider your words as you're speaking. Consider that your words that are coming out of your mouths, whether it's to your friends or your family or online or to yourself while you're sitting alone in your bedroom, they are guiding your life a direction. And simply ask yourself, if what James says is true, is this the direction I want my life headed? And how can I change my speech to end up in the destination I'm seeking? So that's the first practical challenge. The second practical challenge is going to be a little bit weird, but that's okay because I'm a little bit weird and I'm fine with admitting that and with you guys being a little bit weird with me. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read a few phrases, and I don't know about you guys, but my guess is we all speak pretty negatively about ourselves. We don't want to admit it, but if we're honest with ourselves, that when we're alone, we speak a lot of things that aren't true to ourselves. And that is something that guide our lives to a destination. And so in our family, we call this finding our truth. And we find our truth and we tell ourselves the truth about whatever situation that we are facing, whatever it is that we are believing about ourselves. We find our truth and we say it to ourselves. And at first, guys, I tell you what, it feels awful. When I am beating myself up and I am down and I am frustrated, the last thing that I want to hear is myself telling myself how special I am. But if we tell ourselves that, if we use our words will actually impact our feelings, our direction, and our destination. And so tonight, as a practical challenge, we are just going to practice finding our truth. Here's the way we're going to do it. I'm going to read a phrase, and you are going to repeat the phrase. However, I am going to say you, and you are going to say I. For example, first phrase is, you are loved. You would repeat back, I am loved. All right? Make sense? Any questions? Okay. All right. So I'm going to read these phrases real quick. When I'm done reading, then we'll move on. But here we go. You are loved. You are beautiful. You have a purpose. You are successful. You are important. You will get through this. You matter. Now, I know if you are anything like me, there are some of you sitting here that are like, yeah, I wish I believed that. Continue to find your truth. Continue to speak words into your own life that guide you to a destination, because what James says is true, that our words direct the course of our life and guide us to a destination. Check this out.